When we talk about, getting to Mars, how realistic do you think that is? There's a book that just came out, it was reviewed in the Wall Street Journal, talking about all of the various obstacles to human beings actually living on Mars. Like we live in a pretty propitious place. I mean, the world is a pretty wonderful planet.
Here. Yeah.
And
it's
so,
well suited to us.
Yeah, exactly. So what are the biggest obstacles? And what do you think the timeline is in terms of having a robust presence on other planets?
We're hoping to have the first humans on the moon in less than 5 years. Mars, maybe a little longer than 5 years. I'd be surprised if we don't have humans on Mars within 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And then we're going to aim to have a lot of humans and build a city on Mars and a base on the moon.
I mean, how do we mobilize that many resources there that quickly? That's a lot of resources necessary. It's not like you can draw from the environment.
A lot of resources. Now, I should say in order to pass the Fermi Great Filter of being a multi-planet species, the second planet has to be self-sustaining. So that the acid test being that if the resupply ships from Earth stop coming for any reason whatsoever, it could be mundane or serious, will Mars die out or not? So basically, Mars has to be completely self-sufficient in order to pass the Fermi Great Filter. The particular great filter I'm talking about is if something calamitous happens to one planet, is humanity gone or not?
And so how long will it take for that to be self-sustaining? When you say, in 10 years people will be on Mars?
Like 40-ish years.
So one of the things I think that captures the imagination about what you're doing is that you're speaking in ambitious terms that people have not spoken in the West for solidly half a century.
Yeah,
I mean, really, it's an amazing thing.
I guess I say it so often.
You say this stuff because it's you all the time.
Yeah.
But the reality is that the last time people were talking about within a decade we're going to have a man on the moon was JFK talking at the beginning of the 1960s.
Yeah, 61
and
or something.
It's been full on half a century since anybody talked like this, and I think people find it shocking. And I think maybe we should look at the other side of that. So both sides. One, what makes you different? And two, why do you think that dream went away? Why do you think it was that for half a century after we put a man on the moon, we just kind of receded back into whatever the hell was else going on?
Yeah, that's a long story. But the follow-up to the shuttle, to the Saturn V was the space shuttle. Space shuttle could only go to low Earth orbit. But the aspiration was to make it reusable. But they unfortunately did not succeed in that goal. The space shuttle was so difficult to refurb that it ended up costing as much as the Saturn V. And then the primary structure of the space shuttle orbiter system, that big orange tank, it's actually the primary airframe because it takes the load from the orbiter, the sort of airplane-looking thing, and the side boosters. So you lose that every time. The side boosters land in the ocean, and they're solid rocket boosters, so that they have to get shipped back to the factory to get solid propellant loaded in. Cut a long story short, the cost per flight of the shuttle ended up being roughly the same as a Saturn V expendable. But the shuttle had about a quarter of the payload to orbit and could not reach the moon. So noble ideas at the start, but ultimately it was not a good design. So, and then the shuttle retired, obviously, and then we had nothing. That curve that's not a good curve, going from the moon to low Earth orbit to nothing. That does not extrapolate to being a multi-planet species. So that's why I started SpaceX, is to try to reverse that trend and get us back on to doing exciting things in space again. Things that make people excited to get up in the morning and say, yes, humanity is going to do some amazing thing in space.
We're experiencing a lot of global instability as we plunge into primary season, like no shipping in the Red Sea, like continuing inflation that's setting in on your savings. Well, you should protect your savings. It's not too late to diversify an old IRA or 401k into gold. Birch Gold Group can help you with that. I diversify, you should too. That is the smart way to do things. Birch Gold can help you create a well thought out and balanced investment strategy. They'll help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold without paying a penny out of pocket. Diversify into gold today. Just text Ben to 989898 for a free info kit. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, countless 5-star reviews, thousands of happy customers, I encourage you to arm yourself with the knowledge of diversification through precious metals. Text Ben to 989898. Claim your free info kit. Protect your savings with gold. Again, diversification is just smart business strategy. Protect your savings today. Inflation eats it up. Bad government policy eats it up. Gold can help protect you. Text Ben to 989898 today to get started.
One of the things that's so impressive about SpaceX is not just the aspiration, but the fact that it's a successful business and that you realized very early on that it's not enough to have the aspiration. I mean, it was a government that put a person on the moon. That's not the same thing as actually being able to build, you said self-sustaining with regard to life on Mars, but a self-sustaining business that actually has the capacity in a profit-driven model to do something like that, to project.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, at the start of SpaceX, I gave us a less than 10% chance of success. I thought we'd probably die. But, I think if something is important enough, it's worth doing, even if you think it's going to fail. And we almost did fail. The first 3 launches of our small rocket failed. Only the 4th one launched, succeeded. And if that 4th one had failed, we would be dead. So it's close. At this point, knock on wood, SpaceX is quite prosperous. SpaceX did about 80% of all payload to orbit last year of Earth. China did about 12%, and the rest of the world did 8%. So in this year, if things go well, SpaceX will do 90% of all payload to Earth. And then as Starship really takes off, SpaceX will be doing, at least based on what other companies are currently doing, which is around 300-400 tons to orbit. SpaceX ultimately will be doing several 100,000 tons to orbit, maybe 1 million tons to orbit.
It's amazing. And what you mentioned there, that it's a sort of skin of the teeth thing. I mean, that's been true in a lot of companies that you've worked with. I mean, that was true in Tesla also, that it was a real skin of the teeth thing.
Yeah.
And so maybe you can talk a little bit about, what does that feel like? I mean, as a CEO, and you're a person who is a professional CEO, I mean, you must, do you enjoy the risk? Do you enjoy that stress level?
Well, I don't seek risk for risk's sake. Tesla had many close calls with death. The natural state of a car company in America is dead. I mean, the only 2 car companies that have not gone bankrupt are Ford and Tesla. GM and Chrysler went bankrupt in 2009. There have been hundreds of car bankruptcies before. So it's one of those things where, like I said, the natural state of a car company is dead. So you have to keep pulling rabbits out of a hat to not be dead.
Do you think that your personality is suited to that, and that's why you're successful at this? That you think that's unique to the companies you pick, that you're pulling rabbits out of hats, or is it that every company is pulling rabbits out of hats?
Pull so many rabbits out of the hat, it's like an arc of rabbits just flying through the air. I mean, I'm good at solving technology problems, so, and rockets and cars are both technology problems. Have a very strong team that work with me, and so far so good.